A teenager picks up their phone. 30 seconds later, they swipe. Another 30 seconds, swipe again. In 6 minutes, they've consumed 12 pieces of content. Their grandmother, watching from across the room, hasn't even finished reading the first paragraph of her newspaper article. This isn't a story about attention spans shrinking. It's far more unsettling than that. 5 years ago, something fundamental changed in how we consume information. It happened so quietly, so gradually, that most of us didn't even notice. But the data scientists did. The neurologists did. And what they discovered should make every single one of us pause. Ironically, something we're becoming increasingly incapable of doing. Let me tell you about Marcus, a 24-year-old software engineer from Berlin. In 2019, he could sit through entire movies without checking his phone. He read novels cover to cover. Then, in 2020, he discovered short-form video content. Nothing seemed wrong at first. It was entertaining, bite-sized, perfect for his commute. But by 2023, Marcus noticed something terrifying. He couldn't watch a full movie anymore. 10 minutes in, his hand would reach for his phone, almost involuntarily. His brain was screaming for that next hit of dopamine, that next swipe, that next micro-story compressed into 60 seconds. Marcus isn't an isolated case. He's part of the largest uncontrolled psychological experiment in human history. The algorithm learned something about us that we didn't even know about ourselves. It discovered that our brains aren't actually designed to resist what's coming next. Every swipe is a tiny gamble, a slot machine pull. Will the next video be funny, shocking, touching? We don't know, and that uncertainty is precisely what makes it addictive. Neuroscientists call this variable ratio reinforcement, the same mechanism that makes gambling so devastatingly effective. But here's where it gets genuinely disturbing. In 2019, the average person could maintain focus on a single task for about 12 minutes. By 2024, that number had dropped to 8 minutes. Among heavy short-form content users, it's plummeted to less than 5. We're not just distracted, we're being rewired. Dr. Sarah, a cognitive neuroscientist at Stanford, conducted a study that sent shockwaves through the scientific community. She discovered that people who consumed more than 2 hours of short-form content daily showed measurable changes in their prefrontal cortex activity, the part of the brain responsible for sustained attention and complex thinking. Their brains were beginning to structurally adapt to expect information in rapid 15 to 60-second bursts. Think about what this means. For thousands of years, human cognition evolved to solve complex problems, to follow long narratives, to engage in deep work. Then, in just 5 years, we've voluntarily subjected ourselves to a system that rewards the opposite. The platforms know exactly what they're doing. Internal documents from major tech companies reveal that their algorithms are optimized for something called session duration, keeping you scrolling as long as possible. Every micro-decision their artificial intelligence makes is designed to predict which video will prevent you from putting down your phone. It analyzes your hesitation before swiping, the videos you watch repeatedly, even the time of day you're most vulnerable to certain content types. And it's winning. A teacher in Toronto named Jennifer noticed her students couldn't follow explanations lasting longer than 2 minutes anymore. When she tried to explain a historical event with context and nuance, their eyes glazed over. But when she broke the same information into rapid-fire facts, suddenly they were engaged. She realized with horror that she wasn't just competing with other teachers anymore, she was competing with an algorithm that had spent billions of dollars perfecting the art of capturing attention. The most chilling part? The algorithm is getting better, much better. In 2020, the average user scrolled past a video within 3 seconds if it didn't immediately hook them. Now, platforms have optimized their content so effectively that they can capture attention in less than half a second. The first frame, the first sound, the first word, all engineered with surgical precision based on data from billions of users. But let's talk about what we're losing in this exchange. Deep reading, the kind that builds empathy, critical thinking, and complex reasoning, requires sustained attention. When researchers asked people to read a literary passage after spending 30 minutes on short-form content, their comprehension and emotional engagement dropped by nearly 40% compared to a control group. It's as if the short-form content had temporarily damaged their ability to think deeply. Some defenders argue this is just evolution, that we're adapting to process information more efficiently. But efficiency isn't the same as understanding. You can consume 160-second history videos and come away with less genuine historical knowledge than reading one well-researched article. The difference is that the article requires patience, context-switching resistance, and the willingness to sit with complexity. These are cognitive muscles, and like all muscles, they atrophy when unused. A fascinating study from the University of Cambridge tracked people's media consumption and cognitive abilities over 4 years. They found something unexpected. It wasn't just attention spans declining. Problem-solving abilities, particularly for novel challenges requiring sustained thought, had decreased proportionally to short-form content consumption. The more someone swiped, the worse they became at sitting with uncomfortable, complex problems that couldn't be solved in 30 seconds. Now imagine an entire generation growing up with this as their default mode of thinking. What happens to innovation, to literature, to the kind of deep scientific research that requires months or years of sustained focus? We might be witnessing the last generation of humans capable of truly deep work. But here's the twist nobody talks about. The people designing these systems don't use them. Former tech executives send their children to schools that ban screens. They understand something the rest of us are only beginning to realize: that these platforms aren't tools we control. They're psychological infrastructure that controls us. The algorithm doesn't care about your growth, your knowledge, or your well-being. It cares about one thing: keeping you scrolling, and it's extraordinarily good at it. In 2024, the average person spent 91 minutes per day on short-form content. That's nearly 10% of their waking life, spent in a state of continuous partial attention, never fully present, never fully engaged, just endlessly seeking the next dopamine hit that lasts increasingly shorter. There's a reason slot machines in casinos don't have clocks. There's a reason short-form content platforms removed visible timestamps and made endless scrolling the default. They learned from the best manipulators of human psychology, and then they made it accessible, socially acceptable, and seemingly innocent. Marcus, the engineer we met earlier, eventually deleted all short-form content apps from his phone. It took him 6 weeks before he could watch a full movie again without feeling anxious. 3 months before he could read a book for more than 20 minutes. His brain had to physically rewire itself, rebuilding neural pathways that had been abandoned in favor of rapid content processing. He described it like recovering from an injury he didn't know he had. The question isn't whether these platforms will change. They won't, not voluntarily. They're too profitable, too effective, too perfectly engineered to exploit our psychological vulnerabilities. The question is whether we'll change, whether we'll recognize that our attention isn't just a resource, it's the foundation of consciousness itself, and we're selling it, 30 seconds at a time, to algorithms that have learned to know us better than we know ourselves. The documentary you're watching right now is 9 minutes long. If you've made it this far without pausing or switching to another tab, congratulations. You're already becoming a statistical anomaly.